The alien signal appeared on the tactical scope like a blade through fog, sharp, deliberate, unignorable. The bridge of the Vigilant went silent except for the quiet rasp of filtered air and the hum of the ship's stressed reactors. Commander Arden Holt leaned forward in his command chair, jaw locked, eyes narrowing as lines of encrypted telemetry scrolled down the holoscreens. The pattern repeated every 12 seconds. No variance, no drift. Someone or something had them pinned. Origin vector? Holt asked, voice calm but wired with tension. Lieutenant Ira Kale, his navigation officer, was already running the spectral analysis. High band emissions, tight phase shift. This isn't human. The modulation's fractal. Self-correcting at quantum depth. They're tracking through our stealth scatter. Holt exhaled slowly. So they found us. Across the bridge, the crew shifted uneasily. They'd been silent running for 12 days since the collapse at Cygnus Gate, where 2/3 of the human fleet had been annihilated in a surprise ambush. The aliens, called the Veer, had shown tactics unlike anything human analysts could predict. No comms, no visible command craft, just coordinated kill patterns that implied a hive logic or something worse. Confirmed distance, Holt said. Kale tapped her console. 9.2 million clicks, gaining closure at 0.01 C. They've got our wake signature. That close meant they'd been shadowing for hours, maybe days. Holt felt the weight of it like static on his skin. Engineering report reactor status. Chief Engineer Soren Valek's voice came over comms, gravelly and irritated. Core's stable, Commander. We're cold enough to pass for an asteroid if they weren't sniffing quantum residue. I can spike our neutrino output to jam their sensors, but that'll light us up to every Veer within 10 light minutes. Not yet, Holt said. Let's see what they think they're chasing. At the far end of the bridge, Dr. Lyra Anwin watched the data flow through her lenses. The civilian xenotechnologist had joined the Vigilant 3 weeks ago under emergency directive. Her theories on Veer signal linguistics had impressed command, but this was her first time seeing a live intercept. Her pulse drummed in her ears. They're not tracking the ship, she murmured. Holt turned toward her. Explain. The pattern in their signal, it's recursive, adaptive. It's not reflecting off our hull. It's probing the distortions in the quantum field caused by our maneuver algorithms. They're not reading what we are. They're predicting what we will be. Kale looked up from her scope. That's impossible. Our drift patterns are pseudo-random, not to something that learns in real time, Lyra said softly. Silence again. The alien trackers weren't following heat or light or even mass. They were chasing the ship's intent, modeled through its computational noise. Holt rubbed a hand over his jaw. Then we'll have to think like something we're not. He keyed the tactical board. Kyle, change course, random vectors, no predictive logic. Soren, prep a magnetic flare in the aft section. When we turn, I want it vented hard. Maybe we can ghost their read. Aye, sir, Kale said. Valek muttered something obscene but complied. The engines thrummed as the Vigilant executed a jarring course change, the hull groaning under the stress of shifting inertia dampeners. Outside, invisible to human eyes, a burst of ionized particles sprayed into the void like chaff. For 23 seconds, the tracking signal wavered. Then it reacquired. Still locked, Kale said, disbelief in her voice. They adjusted, Lyra said. They're learning faster. Holt stood, pacing toward the forward viewport. The distant stars glimmered like cold witnesses. Options? We could hit the silent array again, Valek offered. Shut down everything but life support. Drift until they overshoot. They won't, Holt said. They'll match vector and wait us out. They don't get tired. What about counterfire? Kale said, her fingers itching over the targeting grid. We can't fire blind in the dark, Holt said. Not without painting ourselves first. Lyra hesitated, then spoke carefully. Commander, what if the problem isn't the sensors? What if they're linked to our navigation seed? Holt frowned. The core? Yes. The fleet used identical code from the Central Defense Archive. If the Veer intercepted any during the Cygnus collapse, if they cracked the encryption, they could predict our course signatures before we even moved. That thought chilled the room. Are you saying they can see the algorithm itself? Kale said. Lyra nodded. They don't need to read our emissions. They're inside the predictive lattice. Every course correction, every micro jump, it's all already mapped in their model. Valek swore. Then we're screwed. Holt's mind ran through options. Each tactical decision cascaded into probabilities. If the aliens truly understood the core lattice, then every conventional evasive pattern was suicide. But unpredictability wasn't chaos. It could be engineered. Ira, he said, turning to Kale. Can you isolate the nav AI from main control? I can sandbox it, she said, but we'll lose autopilot, inertia compensation, and jump sequence verification. We'd have to hand fly. Do it. Kale's fingers flew. Lights flickered as subsystems cut away from central command. The ship's stabilizers bucked once, twice, before settling into manual override. Manual helm engaged, she said. Good. Now generate a random drift using external perturbations, solar wind, micrometeoroid impacts, radiation flux. No human input. Let the universe steer us for a minute. Lyra watched him surprised. You're introducing true entropy into the course pattern. Let's see if they can predict that. For a long moment, the Vigilant drifted, its reactors throttled to whisper output, hull temperature dropping below sensor threshold. The only sound was the faint ticking of cooling metal. Kale stared at her display. Signal strength. Decaying. Holt's eyes sharpened. Repeat that. They're losing lock. I think they can't map us anymore. A murmur of relief rippled across the bridge. Lyra exhaled shakily. They can't predict what has no intention. Mark their last position, Holt said. Let's see how far they chase a ghost. For 2 hours, the Vigilant drifted through the outer debris of the Eridani belt. Radiation storms from a nearby pulsar masked the ship's minimal emissions. They'd bought time, but not safety. The Veer would adapt again. Holt retreated to his quarters briefly, the adrenaline fading into exhaustion. The narrow compartment smelled faintly of ozone and recycled air. He sat at the console, reviewing telemetry from the last engagement. The alien vessels never showed on optical sensors, only distortions in gravitational shear and dark energy scatter. They were hunters in a dimension humans barely understood. The door chimed. Enter. Lyra stepped in, clutching a data slate. Her normally composed demeanor was cracked at the edges. Commander, I've been analyzing their signal code. There's a rhythm, like recursive echoing. It isn't just communication. It's adaptation in progress. Holt leaned forward. Meaning? They're not exchanging data. They're syncing states. Every Warship shares a singular consciousness layer, recalibrating in real time. When one learns, all learn. Holt rubbed his temple. So when we broke their lock, the others learned how we did it. Eventually, yes. How long? Hours, maybe less. He stared at the console where the ghost traces of the Veer still lingered. Then we need to hit them before they update. Commander, that's suicide. We don't even know their hull composition, their weapon thresholds. We know they adapt. And if they can only adapt after contact, then we strike fast enough they don't have time to evolve. Lyra hesitated, seeing the resolve in his eyes. Then we'll need a weakness. Holt nodded slowly. Find me one. She left, her mind racing through alien logic structures, data compression, field theory. Somewhere in the noise there had to be a flaw. In engineering, Valak and his crew worked under red emergency lighting, hands slick with coolant. The ship's systems were aging, patched after too many skirmishes. Every time they throttled the main drive, the reactor shroud trembled on its magnetic rails. Chief, we can't push the core again like at Cygnus, one of the techs said. The containment's warped 3 microns. Valak grunted. We'll push it anyway. The commander's going to want burn speed, and I'm not going to tell him we can't. He glanced up at the schematic of the ship. Once a proud exploration frigate, the Vigilant was now the last functioning warship in its sector, and the Veer were tightening their net. On the bridge, Kale monitored the decay of the alien signal. They're scattering. Multiple contacts splitting vector. Looks like they're deploying trackers. Defined trackers, Holt said. Microshards, autonomous drones. They're weaving a net around our position. If we move, we'll trip 6 detection fields. Then we'll make them move first, Holt said. How? By showing them something worth chasing. They spent the next hour assembling the decoy, an ejected reactor shell filled with plasma residue and telemetry bait. Kale timed its launch with the pulsar's next radiation flare, hiding the ignition flash. Decoy away, she said. The alien net pulsed on sensors, converging instantly. Dozens of faint signatures pivoted toward the decoy, accelerating. Got them, Holt said quietly. Let's go. The Vigilant broke from drift, engines igniting in a silent bloom of ion fire. They dove through the asteroid field, scraping through debris fields so dense the shields whined under micro-impacts. Kale's knuckles were white on the helm, Valak shouting course corrections from engineering. Reactor flux rising, 30% over nominal. Hold it, Holt said. Stay low under the belt. Chunks of rock the size of cities drifted past, some glowing faintly from radiation scarring. The ship wove between them like a hunted animal. Then Kale froze. Contact, 3 signatures dead ahead. They didn't take the bait. Veer? Confirmed. Mass estimate, destroyer-class equivalents. Holt's mind went cold. Weapons? Gravitic lances. Range within 800 clicks. Prepare countermeasures. Lyra's voice came through the comm. Commander, their weapon charge patterns, they're harmonizing. It's not multiple ships firing separately. It's one weapon spread across 3 hulls. Shared waveform, Holt said. They're triangulating a single energy node. He knew what that meant. If the beam connected, it would slice through the Vigilance hull like silk. Can we break the link? Maybe, if we overload their synchronization field, Lyra said. But we'd need to emit a counter-frequency in the same gravitic range. Engineering, Holt said. Can we modulate the shield harmonics manually? Valak cursed. That's suicide. The feedback could cook us. Do it anyway. Valak's hands flew over the panel. The ship shuddered as the shields began to pulse in strange asymmetric rhythms. On the scope, the 3 Veer ships' convergence wavered. Their beam alignment fractured, a stuttering flicker. Now! Holt barked. Kale rolled the ship hard, diving beneath a tumbling asteroid. The alien beam fired, a silent ribbon of compressed space tearing through the void. It struck the rock instead, vaporizing it in an instant. Fragments hurled into the Vigilance shields, hammering them down to 40%. Shields failing. Return fire, Holt said. The railguns barked, invisible slugs of tungsten ripping through vacuum. One found its mark, detonating along a Veer hull. The creature ship convulsed, its silhouette writhing as biometal peeled away into gas. The others recoiled, their formations breaking. Target down, Kale cried. Lyra watched the readings. Their network's confused. They're not adapting fast enough. Keep pressure, Holt ordered. The Vigilant fired again, tearing another alien craft apart. The third retreated, shimmering into FTL distortion. Silence filled the bridge, broken only by the crackle of overtaxed circuits. Holt's heart pounded, his throat dry. Damage report! Valak's voice came through, ragged. Shields down to 22%. Reactor stable, but we burned half our reserves. Railgun coils overheated. Need cooling cycle. Understood. Begin repairs. Kale leaned back, sweat glistening on her forehead. They weren't ready for that. Lyra nodded slowly, eyes distant. No, they weren't. Holt stared out the viewport where the remnants of alien ships drifted like embers. For the first time, the hunters had bled. But deep in the sensor's static, faint new signals began to bloom. Dozens, then hundreds forming on the far edge of detection range. Kale whispered, Sir, new contacts. Entire wing formation, vectoring straight for us. Holt didn't flinch. Then they just learned what happens when they find us. Outside, the stars shifted as the Veer fleet began to close, and this time, they were coming in force. The sensor wall filled with red. Contact icons multiplied like infection spreading across flesh. Each one tagged with alien identifiers pulsing in silent synchronization. The Veer fleet wasn't chasing. They were enclosing. Commander Holt stood motionless, letting the enormity of the situation settle through the air. His crew's faces were tight, washed in the pale light of alert mode. Estimate? He said. Kale swallowed. 73 vessels, maybe more. Ranged formations, 3 heavy cores, the rest drones and interceptors. They're building a sphere of influence around our vector, meaning they plan to collapse it. Yes, sir. Holt turned toward the viewport. Out there in the vast Black Sea, the Veer were silent, efficient and endlessly patient. He could almost feel their attention like pressure on his mind. He knew they weren't reacting to emotion or aggression. They were adjusting for geometry, probability, survival algorithms written in alien code. The only thing humans had the Veer didn't was desperation, and desperation properly weaponized could be brilliance. He keyed the internal comm. All decks, combat stations. Prepare for full burn in 10 minutes. Engineering, status. Valak's voice came back through layers of static and heat. Core cooling still in recovery from the last engagement. If you light us again too soon, I can't guarantee containment. We don't have a choice. Then I suggest you start praying to math. On a secondary channel, Lyra's voice came through, quick and precise. Commander, I found something. The destroyed Veer vessel. We recorded its residual field decay. There's a moment right after destruction when its network signal doesn't terminate cleanly. It collapses into an interference pattern. Random noise instead of structured code. Holt frowned. And that randomness isn't just noise. It's pain. A feedback loop. The hive feels the loss as data corruption. Kale blinked. You're saying they experience death as packet loss? In a way. The collective architecture can't process termination instantly. For a few seconds they're blind. Every ship in proximity hesitates. Holt felt the weight of that. A disruption window, exactly. If we can trigger multiple node collapses in sequence, we could overload the network temporarily. Jam their coordination. Meaning they'd act independently, Holt said. Lose precision. For a short time, yes. But it might give us a corridor to slip out of the encirclement. Holt turned toward the tactical display. The Veer fleet's formation shimmered in perfect order. He imagined what chaos might look like among them. We'll have to get close enough to inflict chain kills. Kale's eyes widened. That puts us inside their main line. I know. The ship groaned as thrust alignment began. Power levels rose, reactor hum deepening until it vibrated through the deck plates. Holt gripped the railing near the command chair, feeling it resonate like a living pulse. Ira, set course for their eastern flank, target density low, about 20 clicks between destroyer equivalents. If we hit hard and move fast, we might trigger the cascade. Kale hesitated. Understood, sir. The Vigilant rotated, thrusters flaring blue-white. The hull's outer plating reconfigured to minimize radar and gravitic cross-section, each panel sliding microscopically under command of nanomagnetic locks. They became a whisper moving through void. Lyra, stand by to monitor network behavior, Holt said. Valek, I'll need maximum kinetic yield on the first volley. You'll get it, Valek muttered. The minutes stretched as they closed in. Kale adjusted microbursts to weave through the asteroid shadows. The Veer ships ahead glowed faintly in infrared, organic exoships shaped like mantis shells, their hulls alive with motion. Lyra's heart pounded as her instruments mapped the alien signals. The Veer code flowed in pulsing waves, packets of structured energy trading across invisible filaments. It was like listening to a choir with no beginning or end. Range 7,000 clicks, Kale whispered. Target designated Alpha, Holt said. Prepare magnetic rails. The railguns charged silently. Current arcs shimmered across their coils. Valek's voice cracked through the line. Coils at 100%. You get one full volley before they blow. Good enough, Holt said. Fire. 3 slugs launched, invisible and silent. 22 seconds later, the first Veer destroyer folded inward. Its energy field imploded, tearing the hull apart. The explosion rippled through space like lightning without sound. Lyra's displays flared. Signal disruption detected. Secondary nodes lagging. Yes, they're pausing. Follow up target, Holt ordered. Hit the one adjacent fast! Kale aligned, fired again. A second Veer ship bloomed into shrapnel. The interference pattern multiplied, visible now even on tactical as chaotic distortions. The fleet's smooth coordination fractured. They're scattering, Kale said, awe in her voice. It's working. Punch through the gap, Holt said. The Vigilant surged forward. Alarms blared as railgun coils melted, smoke curling through conduits. Valek cursed furiously over the intercom. We're burning through compensators. Coolant tanks are empty. Keep her together, Soren, Holt shouted. The ship dove between disoriented Veer vessels, debris lighting the void in violent flashes. The disruption spread wider, a domino collapse across the local network. Lyra watched the chaos unfold, half exhilarated, half terrified. They're not communicating, she breathed. They're afraid? Don't mistake feedback for fear, Holt said, but he wasn't sure. As they broke clear of the immediate encirclement, new signals emerged from deeper space, bigger, denser, with patterns slower and more deliberate. The Veer hive core was recalibrating. They're rerouting control through a secondary node, Lyra said. Oh, it's not local anymore, it's remote planetary range. Holt's eyes narrowed. They're using a relay, a command vector outside this fleet. Meaning if we can trace it, Kyle said, we could hit their central control. Lyra hesitated. That's suicide. Their command nodes are probably hidden within gravitational wells or nebular distortions. We'd never reach it. Not today, Holt said. But we'll mark the coordinates. Behind them, the Veer fleet reorganized, reforming faster than expected. They're adapting again, Lyra warned. The network's purging corrupted data. Which means they'll learn from this, Holt said. Next time the cascade won't work. Kyle looked over her shoulder. Then we better make next time on our terms. Hours later, the Vigilant drifted beyond the asteroid belt, systems crippled. Smoke hung in corridors, filtering through red emergency light. Medics moved quietly, treating burns and concussions. The silence after battle was heavier than the combat itself. In the infirmary, Holt stood over a wounded technician whose arm had been torn open by an electrical surge. The medic nodded grimly. The man would live, but barely. Holt hated these moments, the human cost of every calculated move. But in the vacuum between stars, sentiment was a liability. Lyra found him there. "Commander, you should rest." "I will when we have options. You bought us time." "That matters," he met her eyes. "Time isn't survival." She hesitated, then handed him a data slate. "I've been decrypting the relay trace. It's faint, but I found the general vector. It leads toward a system 2 jumps out, HD 7319. The emissions there match Veer communication harmonics. If we go, we might find their command node, or at least understand how they coordinate long-range pursuit." Holt studied the projection. "And if it's a trap?" "It will be," she said simply. "But if we want to fight them instead of run, that's where we learn how." Holt nodded once. "Plot the course." Later on the bridge, Kale brought the nav interface online manually. "FTL drive's unstable, Commander. The flux compensator's cracked. If we push a full jump, it might shear the field. Can we micro-jump instead? Short bursts, yes, but we'll need to stop between each to realign. That increases exposure. We'll take the risk." Valak's voice came through again. "If we're really doing this, I'll need 12 hours to patch the compensator. Don't burn the coils until I say so." "Understood," Holt said. 12 hours felt like eternity in contested space. During that time, the crew worked under near-total silence. Only life support, minimal lighting, and environmental recycling ran. Every sound, every clang of a tool, echoed through the hull like gunfire. Kale checked her console again. "I don't like this. We're crawling blind." "That's the point," Holt said. At the aft engineering corridor, Valak leaned against a coolant pipe, eyes burning from fatigue. His assistant approached hesitantly. "Chief, we've got fracture stress increasing. If the next burn fails, containment could breach." Valak looked at the glowing blue veins of the reactor. "Then I guess we don't fail." In her small lab, Lyra stared at fragments of Veer signal recorded during the last engagement. She played it back in slow motion, a rising, falling pulse, harmonic like a heartbeat. Beneath the pattern, she detected faint modulations, repetitions not aligned with command rhythms. Something emotional, almost pleading. The thought disturbed her. When Holt arrived, she didn't look up. "They're not just networked. They're alive within it." "Explain." "When a node dies, it doesn't just transmit data corruption. It transmits memory echoes. The hive is a single consciousness distributed across countless hosts. Each ship, each drone, it's an organ. They don't distinguish between mechanical and biological function." Holt frowned. "Which means killing one hurts the whole." "Yes, but it also makes them smarter. They evolved through loss," he absorbed that silently. "Then maybe we need to teach them a lesson they can't adapt from." She looked up. "That sounds like extinction." "If it's them or us," Holt said quietly. "I know my answer." By the time Valak finished repairs, the Vigilance hull was a patchwork of scorch marks and refitted plates. The jump drive coughed to life with a low vibration that felt unstable but alive. Kale stood ready at the helm, pale from exhaustion yet steady. Course set to HD 7319. Estimated transit, 3 microjumps, 2 hours real time. "Execute," Holt said. Space folded, light warped, and the stars snapped into new configurations. The Vigilant emerged into a region of shimmering dust clouds, illuminated by the dying glow of a red dwarf. Radiation storms painted streaks across the void like auroras frozen in place. Immediately, Lyra's instruments screamed with data. Massive background interference. The whole system's flooded with subspace noise. "Can we isolate the source?" She tuned the filters. Slowly, amid the chaos, a pattern emerged. A deep resonant signal pulsing from the 4th planet buried beneath its atmosphere. "That's it," she whispered. "The command relay." Kyle frowned. "I'm picking up orbital debris. Looks like old human satellites." "Not ours," Holt said. "Too ancient." "Then whose?" Before anyone could answer, the ship's proximity alarms flared. "Contacts, small, fast, multiple vectors." Kyle shouted, "Veer? No, these are human signatures." The bridge froze. Lyra leaned forward, eyes wide. Impossible. There were no human colonies here. A burst of static filled the comms, then a voice. Rough, human, defiant. "Unidentified warship, you're entering restricted orbit. Power down drives and identify." This is Captain Ryan Orso of the Trident's Wake. Kale stared at Holt. A survivor fleet? Maybe, Holt said. Or bait. He keyed the mic. This is Commander Holt of the UHS Vigilant. We thought we were the last. A pause crackled through the silence. Then the voice came again, softer now. Then welcome to the edge of the graveyard, Commander. If you came here looking for the Veer command node, you're already standing on its bones. Outside, the drifting debris field lit up, revealing the skeletal remains of hundreds of ships fused together into one massive ring. And deep within that ring, something pulsed, alive, waiting. The dead fleet loomed ahead like a fossilized storm. Hundreds of warships welded by time and violence into an orbital ring around the barren world below. Radiation shimmered off their surfaces, painting ghost lights across the Vigilant's hull. Holt stared at the display, struggling to reconcile what he was seeing. Kyle adjusted the focus. Those hulls, some are pre-Federation design, centuries old. Lyra leaned closer, whispering, It's a graveyard, all right. But something's still moving in there. Holt nodded to her console. Confirm. She isolated the faint movements, flickering transponder echoes, irregular pulses of light deep in the mass. They're power fluctuations. Minimal but active. Someone, or something, is using the Rex as cover. The comms crackled again with Ryan Orso's voice. You've got guts flying straight into that nest, Commander. Bring your ship under the outer ring's shadow and cut emissions. The Veer don't patrol here often, but they listen. Holt exchanged a wary glance with Kale. Understood, Trident's Wake. He gestured. Take us in, slow and quiet. The Vigilant drifted beneath the ring's skeletal arc. Shadows consumed the ship as light from the red dwarf dimmed. Inside that darkness, broken hulls hung like carcasses. Occasionally a ghostly flicker of movement. Drones patching metal. Scavengers welding something alive from the dead. Hard to believe humans could survive here, Kyle murmured. They didn't, Valak said grimly through comms. They adapted. When the Vigilant emerged near the heart of the graveyard, a new shape glided into view. The Trident's Wake was a monstrous construct, a warship made from scavenged hulls, bristling with improvised weaponry. It moved with slow, deliberate control, scars glowing faintly where reactors had been grafted. A docking corridor extended from its flank, a segmented worm of alloy and magnet clamps. Holt studied it. That thing looks one misstep away from tearing apart. Kyle gave a thin smile. Then we'll dock carefully. Moments later, the Vigilant latched onto the other vessel. Pressure equalized with a groaning hiss. Holt led the boarding team, Kale, Lyra, and 2 Marines. The corridor trembled under their boots as they crossed. Inside, dim lights flickered over walls of mismatched panels and exposed circuitry. The air smelled of ozone, oil, and old blood. They were met by figures in patched exosuits. The leader removed his helmet. Ryan Orso, rough-faced, his eyes like steel ground thin. Commander Holt, he said. You look like someone who's seen the wrong side of too many battles. Most of them lately, Holt said. Then welcome to the last one. They walked through the Wake's interior. Everywhere were remnants of survival. Crew repairing cables with salvaged drones. Makeshift farms glowing under UV strips. Children sleeping near radiation shielding. Lyra's gaze softened. How long have you been here? 7 years, Orso said. After the first Veer incursions, we were stranded during withdrawal. We hid in this debris belt, learned the patterns. The Veer think this orbit's inert, too noisy for their clean calculations. Kyle frowned. You've been under their sensors for 7 years? Orso nodded. We've learned their rhythms better than most. Enough to know what you stirred up by shooting their hunters. We didn't have much choice, Holt said. None of us did, Orso said. But that strike echoed through the hive. You've got their attention now. They'll come. They reached the command deck, a cavernous chamber built from the bridge of 3 destroyed cruisers welded together. Displays flickered with alien signal traces and orbital maps. Orso pointed to one screen showing a waveform pulsing deep beneath the planet's surface. That's your command relay, buried kilometers down in the crust. The Veer use it to sync fleets across sectors. We've been listening to it for years. Holt studied the pulsing pattern. Can it be destroyed? Not by anything we've got. The surface is covered with autonomous defenses. Orbital mines, field sentinels, quantum jammers. Every time we sent a probe, it never came back. Lyra stepped forward, scanning the signal. It's not just a relay. It's a gestation hub. The pattern's reproductive, cyclic replication. It's growing more nodes. Orso's jaw tightened. We've seen the spawn clouds. If that thing finishes, it'll birth another fleet core. Then no one will be able to hide anywhere. Holt's mind turned cold. Then we have to stop it before it matures. Kyle looked between them. Commander, with what? Our ship can't survive a ground strike, and we're outnumbered 100 to 1. Not if we make the Veer shoot themselves, Holt said. Lyra turned to him sharply. You want to trick the Hive? Not trick, Holt said. Reprogram their perception. You said their network adapts through loss. If we make them see that relay is corrupted, infected, they might destroy it themselves to protect the whole. Lyra blinked. We'd need to mimic a Veer death signal across the Hive frequency, scaled to node intensity. Can you do that? She hesitated.
Maybe, if I had access to their communication spine. Orso's grim smile returned.
You're in luck. We've been collecting Veer fragments for years. He led them to a storage bay filled with alien wreckage, organic shards still pulsing faintly, neural cables like roots curling through metal. The sight made everyone uneasy. Lyra knelt beside a fragment, scanning it. This could work. It's a memory node. If I cross-link it with our emitter array, I can generate a synthetic death feedback. Make it look like the relay's gone rogue. Kale's brow furrowed. And when they notice the signal originated from us? They won't, Lyra said. If we broadcast from inside the relay's harmonic field, it'll look internal. Orso raised an eyebrow. Meaning someone has to go down there. Silence spread through the group. Holt's face hardened. Then we'll go. Preparation took hours. The Trident's wake provided a landing craft, barely spaceworthy, its hull scarred and shield generators half-functional. Volek oversaw its retrofit, muttering curses the entire time. You know this is suicide, right? He said to Holt. Most victories start that way, Holt said, assuming anyone's left to enjoy them. Lyra worked alongside him, integrating the Veer node into the ship's core. Its surface glowed faintly, alive in ways that unnerved even her. Kale loaded flight vectors into her wristpad. Once we're inside the field, comms will degrade. We'll be on our own. Understood, Holt said. As they strapped in, Orso appeared on the hangar's comm feed. If you make it back, we'll be ready to cover your exit. If not, thank you for trying. The landing craft detached, gliding away from the graveyard's shadows. The planet loomed below, a sphere of rust and glass, lightning flashing across its toxic atmosphere. The closer they came, the more interference battered their instruments. Radiation density rising, Kyle said. Shields barely holding. Keep them balanced, Holt replied. They plunged through cloud layers lit by electric storms. Flashes illuminated the alien defense lattice, miles-long spires extending skyward, humming with unseen energy. Contact, Kyle said. Autonomous sentinels on intercept course. The first volley hit, streams of plasma that tore across their shields. Valek shouted from engineering. Field's dropping fast. I can reroute secondary conduits, but that'll melt the core in 3 minutes. Do it, Holt barked. Kale twisted the craft through a storm front, lightning striking so close it blinded them. The alien sentinels pursued relentlessly, their sleek forms weaving through turbulence with terrifying grace. Lyra activated the emitter node. If we can match their communication frequency, maybe we can confuse them. Do it now. She linked the node and the console erupted in static. The Veer ships faltered mid-formation, some turning away, others firing erratically. It's working, Lyra gasped. They're reading us as part of their own network. Then let's make it count. They broke through the last cloud layer and saw it. The command relay. A colossal crystalline structure half buried in the planet's surface, pulsing like a heart. Energy veins radiated outward, connecting to orbiting spires that fed the hive signal. Target in sight, Holt said. Kyle's voice was steady, awe threaded with dread. That thing's alive. Lyra adjusted the emitter. We need to plant the node at the central pulse chamber. If we inject the false death signature there, the hive will believe the infection's spreading. Holt checked his sidearm. Then we go in on foot. They landed in a scorched valley at the structure's base. The air shimmered with heat and chemical haze. As they disembarked, the ground vibrated beneath their boots, distant mechanical rhythms like a heartbeat buried in stone. Radiation within limits, Kyle reported. But not for long. They approached the relay's base, massive openings resembling gills exhaling steam. Inside, corridors of translucent alloy pulsed with light. The interior was neither ship nor machine but something in between, alive with subtle motion. "Stay close," Holt said. "No comms beyond 50 meters." They moved cautiously through the alien architecture. Strange tendrils retracted as they passed, as though the structure recognized them. Lyra's scanner flickered. The node's resonating. "It senses the network." "Then it knows we're here," Kale said. "Or thinks we're part of it," Lyra whispered. They reached the pulse chamber, a vast, hollow space filled with luminous liquid flowing upward, defying gravity. At its center floated a massive crystalline core, pulsing in sync with distant vibrations. Holt took in the sight. "That's where we plant it." Lyra nodded, hands shaking slightly as she connected the emitter node to her pack. "Once activated, it'll broadcast the death signature across every connected Veer ship. They'll believe the infection began here." "Timeline?" Holt asked. 30 seconds to full transmission. Kyle positioned herself at the entrance, rifle ready. Plenty of time to die, then. As Lyra set the node into the core's base, the chamber brightened. The structure around them seemed to awaken. "Commander," Kale said tensely, "I think it knows what we're doing." Energy surged through the floor. Lyra's instruments screamed. "They're scanning us, verifying the pattern." "Finish it," Holt barked. She triggered the node. The chamber flared white, blinding. Every surface vibrated, then silence, followed by a deep, low hum that grew into a resonant scream. Outside, across the system, Veer ships convulsed as corrupted signals tore through their network. Fleets began firing on each other, logic collapsing into chaos. "It's working," Lyra shouted. "The hive's attacking itself." "Then let's get out," Holt said. They sprinted back through the corridors as the structure trembled. Chunks of crystal rained down, energy arcing across walls. Kale led the way, shouting course corrections through static. At the landing craft, Valak's voice crackled faintly through comms. "You've got a window 5 minutes before the whole damn crust explodes." They boarded, sealing the hatch as the surface began to tear apart. Kale launched them into the storm, flames streaking the horizon below. As they rose through the atmosphere, Lyra looked back. The planet's surface fractured, releasing bursts of white energy into space. The command relay was imploding, the false infection consuming it from within. Then the signal changed. Lyra's heart froze. "Commander, wait. The hive's stabilizing. They're reconfiguring the corruption. They're learning from it." Holt's face hardened. "They're adapting mid-destruction." Which means the sky erupted. A massive shockwave struck the craft, hurling it into a spin. Kale fought the controls, alarms blaring. "We're losing altitude," Valak shouted through the comms, voice distant and distorted. "Brace for impact." The last thing Holt saw before everything went black was the relay collapsing into itself, and something vast emerging from the debris, shaped like a blade and burning brighter than the planet's core. The Vigilant drifted just beyond the rim of the dying world's orbit, its hull mottled with battle scars and half-functioning systems. The planet below was still tearing itself apart in slow motion, the remains of the blade structure burning white in the upper atmosphere. Debris spiraled like snow into the void. Commander Holt stood on the bridge and watched the feed until the last flames dimmed. Every flicker felt like a heartbeat he could not save. Kale's voice broke the silence. "FTL coils have cooled. We can jump when you're ready." He didn't turn. "Lyra, where's our vector?" The scientist lifted her eyes from a cracked console. "Meridian Station. The coordinates are clean, but there's chatter. Low-band transmissions piggybacked on old civilian frequencies. It's them. The Veer are using the station as an incubator." Orso leaned against the bulkhead, gaunt under the lights. "Then they've learned to hide behind our ghosts." Holt finally turned from the viewport. "We end this before it grows another head. Meridian is the key." They jumped. The stars bent and reformed around them. When they emerged, Meridian filled the screens, an abandoned ring station circling a brown dwarf, the kind of place where doctrines went to die. The ring was cracked in 3 places. Its docking spines half collapsed, but heat signatures glowed faintly across the inner hull. Something alive had moved in. "Scan shows multiple life zones," Kyle said. "Human oxygen mix," Lyra frowned. "That shouldn't be possible. Meridian was evacuated 40 years ago." Orso grunted. "Maybe not everyone left." Before Holt could reply, the comms flared to life, a male voice, raw and distorted by static. "Human ship, power down drives and identify. You are trespassing in a restricted sector." Kale's jaw tightened. "That's a defense handshake." Patch it through, Holt said, the voice sharpened. This is Commander Jalen Reeve, acting authority of Meridian Station. Whoever you are, turn around. The facility's compromised. Holt's gaze narrowed. Jalen Reeve was supposed to be dead. Lyra's fingers hovered over her console. If he's alive, he's sitting on the node. Holt opened the channel. Reeve, this is Commander Arden Holt of the UHS Vigilant. We're not your enemy. We're chasing a Veer control relay. A pause. Then quieter. You're too late. They're already here. The line cut. Kale looked at Holt. Trap? Or warning, he said. Either way, we find out. They approached under minimal power, drifting until the station's bulk blocked their thermal signature. The docking ring was dark except for emergency strobes. Holt led the boarding team again. Kale, Lyra, and a small marine detachment. Orso stayed aboard to keep the ship ready to burn out fast. The docking clamps bit. The airlock cycled with a sigh that sounded like memory exhaling. Inside, the corridors of Meridian were haunted, dust hanging in zero-G, lights flickering through cracked panels, a faint hum of systems still refusing to die. Kyle swept the entryway with her rifle. No movement, Lyra's scanner pinged faintly. Residual Veer energy. They've been here recently. They moved deeper, the sound of their boots echoing. Signs of old battles scarred the walls. Burn marks, pressure fractures, frozen droplets of blood. On one bulkhead, someone had scrawled words in grease. We adapted first, a voice drifted from the dark ahead. That we did. Jalen Reeve stepped into the light, older than the files had shown, beard streaked with gray, an exosuit patched with alien metal. He carried no weapon, but his eyes were too steady for comfort. Holt stopped 2 paces short. You said they're already here. Reeve nodded. Half the station is Veer substrate now. They don't build ships anymore. They grow them from our old structures. Meridian's reactor is a breeding pit. Lyra stepped forward. You let them in. Reeve didn't flinch. They were already in. The moment the last human here switched the lights back on, they woke up in the circuits. They're not just invaders, Doctor. They're an idea that rewrote the hardware. Kale's voice was sharp. And you've been what, caretaker to your own infection? I've been keeping the infection contained, Reeve said. Barely. Every power surge you generate, every signal you send, they absorb and learn. I held them here because I had no choice. Holt studied him. You've seen what they're becoming. Reeve's expression tightened. Yes, and you're about to give them what they need to finish it. That drew silence. Lyra's pulse hammered in her ears. Explain. You broadcast unpredictability at the blade, Reeve said. You think you taught them confusion. You didn't. You taught them how to model chaos. Now they can forecast risk the way we forecast weather. Meridian is their lab. Kale muttered. We should blow the station right now. Reeve shook his head. You try that. They'll push back through the reactor feed and bloom across every relay between here and Sol. The only way to kill them is to collapse the lattice from the inside. At the quantum seed. Holt's voice was even. You know where it is. I built the containment around it, Reeve said. But if we go down there, it'll know us. It reads identity signatures like scent. Then we mask ourselves, Holt said. You guide us in. Reeve gave a thin smile. You really don't scare easy. Fear's a luxury, Holt replied. Show the way. They descended through maintenance shafts into the lower ring where gravity still functioned. The air grew warmer, tinged with ozone. Veins of alien metal threaded the walls, pulsing with slow blue light. Meridian's bones were no longer human, Kale whispered. They've merged with the structure. Reeve nodded. Half the systems answer to them now. If we touch the wrong conduit, they'll feel it. They reached the reactor core chamber. The sight was unreal. A sphere of liquid light suspended by magnetic fields, surrounded by hundreds of spines that extended into the walls like neural roots. Within the glow drifted a lattice of smaller crystals, each pulsing in rhythm. Lyra realized what she was seeing. The seed. This is it, she breathed. Holt's eyes were hard. How do we kill it? Reeve drew a small module from his belt, a dull cube etched with fractal lines. This is a containment cascade. It'll invert the reactor's magnetic field, force a self-collapse, but it needs manual priming. Kale's look was sharp, meaning someone stays. Reeve met her eyes without flinching. I wasn't planning on leaving. Holt's jaw tightened. You're not dying alone down here. You don't have a choice, Reeve said quietly. It's keyed to my biosignature. That's the only way it won't flag as external interference. Lyra stepped forward. You could have done this already. I needed the hive distracted, he said. Your battle at Eridani did that. Now they're half blind. You bought me the window. Holt wanted to argue, but the truth sat heavy in the air. The man was already gone. He'd made peace with it long before they arrived. Reeve handed Lyra a data shard. When the seed collapses, the Veer will send every surviving thread to one location, their true core. The coordinates are in here. Finish what we started. She took it, hands trembling. Reeve turned to Holt. When you tell the story, tell them we weren't all cowards. Holt's throat was tight. You have my word. They retreated as Reeve moved to the console. The reactor glow intensified, a slow crescendo. Through the observation glass, they saw him place the module into the core housing, his figure outlined in light. Then the floor began to shake. Collapse initiated, Lyra said, eyes wide. We need to move, they ran. The corridors twisted under stress, panels bursting as energy surged. Kale led them through the upper ducts, sparks raining down. Holt could feel the heat even through his armor. When they reached the docking corridor, alarms blared across every frequency. Meridian was dying. Docking clamps engaged, Orso's voice crackled over comms. Get your asses back now. They jumped the last meters into the Vigilance airlock as the corridor behind them tore apart. Kale hit the seal and the hatch slammed shut. Through the viewport they watched Meridian fold inward, light swallowing the ring until it was just a collapsing halo around the dwarf. Then the dwarf itself flared, a bright wound in the dark, Kale whispered. He did it! Lyra was pale, eyes fixed on her console. He did more than that. The collapse pulse triggered a recall sequence. Every Veer unit in system is vectoring toward the dwarf. All of them. Holt leaned over her shoulder. They're regrouping? They're migrating, she said. Whatever's left of their consciousness is pulling toward a single node. Orso's face appeared on the bridge hollow, lit by emergency red. We can intercept maybe half before they jump. What's the call, Commander? Holt stared at the swirling mass on the screen. Hundreds of glowing ships converging into a single enormous structure forming an orbit. The last act of a dying hive, he exhaled. We finish it, Kale's voice was hoarse. With what? We've got half a railgun, one working reactor, and no shields. Lyra looked up, eyes hard. We have their pattern. For once we know where they'll be. Holt nodded slowly. Then we take everything left and we make it count. He turned to the crew. This is the end of the chase. Prepare the ship. All power to weapons and drives. We go in now. Outside, the swarm was already merging into something vast, a sphere of light and shadow, the final evolution of the Veer hive. Inside it, the last echo of Meridian's reactor still pulsed. Human and alien merged into one lethal heartbeat. Kale set the course. Collision vector locked. Holt's voice was low, steady, carrying through the ship like a vow. Let's show them what they were never prepared for. The Vigilant ignited every remaining drive, engines howling. The stars tilted. The swarm grew enormous on the forward screen, the glow of it filling their vision. Around them, the hum of systems reached a fever pitch, and beneath it all was the pulse of human determination. Flawed, relentless, unyielding, they dove straight into the light. The Vigilant plunged into the swarm, every alarm howling as hull plating blistered under the heat of alien proximity. The Veer formation was no longer a fleet but a living storm. Hundreds of ships merging into a single vast structure of light and geometry, a sphere that flexed and shuddered as it grew. Every movement radiated intent, an intelligence reassembling itself around one purpose: adaptation. Kyle's hands danced across the helm. Collision corridor clear, barely. We'll hit atmosphere in 70 seconds. Keep her steady, Holt said. His voice was iron. Orso, feed every reactor watt into the drive. I want full thrust and stabilization on manual. The bridge was a furnace of red lights and static. Systems bled errors across every screen, but no one stopped to look. Lyra crouched over the sensor pit, eyes locked on the growing mass ahead. They're folding their outer layers inward. It's like they're trying to cocoon the core. They know we're coming, Kale muttered. Good, Holt said. Let them brace. The Veer sphere pulsed, its surface opening like an iris. From it burst streams of energy that arced through vacuum like lashes of light, each one powerful enough to vaporize a destroyer. Kale spun the Vigilant into evasive maneuvers, the inertial dampeners groaning. One beam grazed the port flank. The ship bucked hard and fire erupted from the aft corridor. Portside plating gone, Orso shouted over comms. Containment fields failing. Seal it off and reroute life support. Holt barked. Lyra's voice was strained. Commander, we can't win with kinetics. Their energy fields harmonizing faster than our targeting can adjust. Then we don't use kinetics, Holt said. We use what they can't predict. Kale's head snapped toward him. You mean the entropy charge? He nodded once she stared. That'll tear us apart. It'll tear them apart too, Holt said quietly. For a moment the bridge was silent except for the hum of power and the distant groans of the hull. Every face turned toward him, waiting for an order they already knew would be their last. Lyra broke the silence. If we overload the entropy injectors through the main reactor, the detonation will create a quantum cascade, an event horizon built from pure random interference. The Vir lattice won't be able to stabilize around it. Orso's voice came through hoarse and resigned. But we'll be inside the event horizon when it collapses. Holt looked around the bridge. We were never getting out of this alive. But we can make sure humanity does. Kale's eyes glistened. Then let's make it clean. They moved as one. Kale adjusted the flight path, locking the Vigilant onto a direct impact vector with the Vir sphere's core. Lyra bypassed safety locks on the reactor and began splicing the entropy injectors into the power conduits. Orso coordinated the last of the engineering crew, purging auxiliary decks to keep pressure from collapsing the main spine. 30 seconds to maximum compression, Lyra reported. After that, there's no reversing it. Holt stood at the viewport watching the light consume the stars. Then let's make every second count. The Vir reacted as the Vigilant pierced the first layer of the sphere. Energy filaments wrapped around the ship like tendrils, dragging at its hull. Kale fought the controls, sweat beating at her temple. They're trying to hold us, tractor harmonics and gravitational shear. Break it, Holt said, working on it. Lyra rerouted plasma through the outer thrusters, creating sudden instability. The ship rolled violently, shattering one tendril and tearing free. Another grabbed the port wing. Kale counter-thrusted, engine screaming, and broke that too. They fell into the sphere's inner chamber and saw it. The Vir core hung suspended in space, a colossal crystalline mass the size of a city, rotating slowly within webs of light. Energy cascaded through it like blood through veins. Within the translucent layers, shapes moved, echoes of faces, human and alien, flickering in and out as if the Vir were learning how to wear humanity like a mask. Lyra's breath caught. They're copying us, Kale whispered. They're becoming us. No, Holt said softly. They're trying to perfect us. The realization hit all of them at once. The Vir weren't just evolving to survive. They were evolving toward comprehension, toward an intelligence that could predict not just movement or behavior, but choice itself. If they succeeded, there would be no more wars. There would be no us left to fight them. Now, Holt said. Lyra initiated the entropy cascade. Alarms exploded across the ship. Reactor charging 20%, 40, 60. The Vir reacted instantly. The core pulsed, releasing a blinding wave that struck the Vigilant head-on. Systems fried. Half the bridge went dark. Kale's console blew sparks across her hands. Shields gone, she shouted. We're naked! Keep her steady, Holt roared. The Vir core began to collapse inward, as if drawing energy to annihilate them before they could strike. Tendrils of light extended, piercing the Vigilant's hull. One skewered the port corridor, cutting through steel like silk. The ship screamed as atmosphere vented into the void. Lyra clung to her console, hair whipping around her face. 80% charge, holding. Another tendril slammed through the engineering deck. Orso's voice came over comms, heavy with static. Containment's cracking. I'm patching what I can, but... Commander, if this goes, it's going with me. Holt gritted his teeth. Do it, Orso, you know the timing. There was a long pause. Then a low chuckle. Always knew we'd finish where it started. The line went dead. Charge at 98%. Lyra cried. If we fire now, we can collapse the core. Kale looked up, sweat streaking down her face. And us with it. Holt placed a hand on her shoulder. There's no better company. She met his eyes, nodded once, and turned back to the helm. Then let's give them a human ending they can't predict. The Vigilant drove forward, every thruster flaring white. They plunged straight into the Vir core. Light swallowed the ship whole. Inside the core, everything went silent. The Vir lattice shimmered around them, patterns of impossible symmetry fracturing and reforming. Holt could feel the hum in his bones, the sense of something watching, understanding, and trying to replicate him in real time. Lyra, he said quietly. Now, she pressed the trigger. The reactor screamed. Entropy flooded outward in a tidal wave of raw probability. The Veer lattice convulsed, its perfect geometry unraveling as randomness infected it. Lines twisted into spirals, collapsing into noise. The crystal structure shattered, shedding fragments of light that flickered and died. Through the chaos, the Vigilant began to break apart. Hull sections peeled away, decks rupturing in showers of sparks. The bridge was a hurricane of smoke and energy. Kale's voice came through the static. "Commander, thank you." Holt reached for her, but she was already gone in the flare of light. Lyra held the console until the last moment, recording every data point she could before the surge consumed it all. Her final log was a whisper. "We gave them chaos." Then the Vigilant was gone. The Veer core imploded, collapsing in on itself as the cascade reached critical mass. The surrounding fleet spasmed in unison, each ship's neural link burning out in a chain reaction of unresolvable logic. Across the system, every Veer vessel flickered, stuttered, and went dark. The sphere fractured into a storm of debris that scattered across the void. Silence returned to space. For a long time, there was nothing, no signal, no movement. Only the drifting remnants of a warship that had refused to surrender. Then, amid the wreckage, a faint pulse, a single escape pod, half melted and spinning slowly, ejected from what had been the Vigilant's aft section. Inside, life signs flickered weakly. Lyra Anwen woke to darkness. Pain lanced through her side. Her visor display flickered, showing radiation levels barely within survivable range. The pod systems were crippled, but one beacon still blinked. She reached out trembling and activated it. A soft hum filled the chamber. The comms light turned green. Somewhere in the distance, a response came, a human transponder. She exhaled, tears mixing with the condensation on her helmet. "Arden," she whispered. "We did it." Hours later, a salvage corvette from the surviving fringe colonies intercepted the pod. The crew pulled her aboard, silent and wide-eyed as she told them what had happened. By the time they reached command at the Terran Union relay, her voice was hoarse but steady. The reports spread fast. The Veer were gone, or at least scattered. Their hive network had collapsed across every known sector. For the first time in years, the stars were quiet. A memorial was held in orbit above the ruins of Meridian Station. Ships from across the colonies assembled, their hulls marked with the Vigilance insignia, a symbol of defiance and sacrifice. Lyra stood alone at the viewport, looking down at the burned husk of the station that had nearly become the Veer's cradle. The admiral beside her spoke softly. "You understand what you've done?" She nodded. "We didn't destroy them. We broke their certainty. Will they come back? Maybe," she said. "But next time they'll face a species that knows how to fight with unpredictability." He looked at her for a long moment. "And what will you do now?" Lyra's gaze drifted toward the stars, where new signals were beginning to bloom. Faint, human, and scattered, building something from the ashes. "I'll rebuild," she said. "The way Arden would have wanted." The admiral inclined his head. "Then God help the next ones who underestimate you." When he left, Lyra stayed by the viewport, watching the starlight reflect off the shattered remains of Meridian. Somewhere out there, beyond the silence, fragments of Veer code still drifted through the void, dormant but not dead. She knew they would learn again one day, but humanity would be ready. In the months that followed, new fleets rose, not built for conquest but for vigilance. The doctrine born from the Vigilant sacrifice became known as the Holt Protocol. Adaptability through coordination, chaos through control. Every new ship carried an entropy core, small, contained, and human. At the dedication of the first of these vessels, the Vigilant II, Lyra stood before the crew, older, scarred, but unbroken. Her voice carried through the deck. "We don't fight to dominate," she said. "We fight to remain unpredictable." That's what they never understood. The human heart isn't efficient, it's erratic, inconsistent, flawed. But that imperfection is the one thing no intelligence can ever calculate. That's our weapon, that's our legacy. The crew saluted. Engines rumbled to life. The new warship slid into the dark, its name etched into its hull with the same words the first Vigilance crew had spoken in defiance. We were not prepared for what came next. As the ship vanished into the black, Lyra closed her eyes and remembered the faces. The commander who refused to yield, the pilot who defied the odds, the engineer who gave everything for stability, the survivor who found redemption in fire. They were gone, but their doctrine endured. And far beyond human reach, in the cold silence between stars, a single fragment of Veer code pulsed once. hesitant, searching, and then began to change. But this time, it did not evolve toward perfection. It evolved toward wonder.